At around the turn of the century, Doha had witnessed a major transformation in all aspects. Following the discovery of the nation's oil and gas resources in the 1950s, Doha developed from a small metropolis to a global city. This rapid growth over a few short decades resulted in vast changes to the identity of the city and the way of life for its residents. Msheireb Properties was born with the desire to regenerate the city centre and return the cultural roots upon which Doha was founded. Her Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Nasser established Msheireb Properties with a mandate to address the gap in the architectural history of Qatar and rediscover a unique form of Qatari urban development.
Msheireb Property aimed to understand and implement how the best of the past and a modern innovation technology can blend to create a new architecture language in Qatar. Looking to Msheireb Downtown Doha, you can see the harmony within the project building. No one building stands out differently from other buildings. Each building has its uniqueness and identity, but all together present a family of one. The beauty of that refers to the master plan guidelines. The way it was structured allowed unified architecture approach without restricting the creativity of the architect. Msheireb Downtown Doha included 3 mosques. All 3 mosques are sustainable with a LEED Gold certification. Msheireb Mosques are one of the unique building typology within the projects. Not only because of their nature and special composite, but as an essential element in identifying urban identity due to their culture and functional role in the community. As Msheireb understands, the purpose of the mosque is not only for praying, but it also plays an important social and cultural role in the community. It was important to blend the mosque with its context. In this regard, 3 key considerations had influenced the location of the mosque within the project. The journey to the mosque from its surrounding, ensuring that people will always have shaded walkway to reach up to the mosque. Secondly, the mosque was located within 10 to 13 minutes walking distance to make it convenient for the surrounding community to reach up to the mosque. Thirdly, all 3 mosques were located next to a plaza, which enriched the relationship between public spaces and the mosque. The creativity in the design of each mosque is unique. It stems from our understanding of being traditionals to the ethic, value, and the essence of the mosque, rather than copying the traditional blindly. The way the architect responded to the challenge was another different angle in the design process.
For the Heritage Quarter Mosque, we focused our attention on the role of the mosque in its local and wider context. In particular, we related the design of the mosque to its context within the Msheireb Downtown development and its proximity to the historic Heritage Quarter. In terms of our design, we focused our attention on the scale, proportion, geometry, and materiality of the mosque, expressing its architecture in a timeless way.
Given the mosque sits within the heritage quarter of the Msheireb development, we look quite closely at specifically historic Qatari mosques and their key characteristics before developing our design. And we took a number of those key features, in particular the use of a courtyard that was either enclosed or open to the community, a gatehouse or a Bushins area that was located normally to the east or south of the courtyard, a pure, quite simple exterior but rich interior, and of course openings to the north, which is a response to climate and the prevailing northerly wind. So we took those characteristics and configured our mosque, and through that then developed a reinterpretation of the vernacular architecture, so that we created a clearly modern building, contemporary building, that was rooted in those historical characteristics. As you enter into the mosque from the central area between the Mohammed bin Jassim House Museum, you enter through a gatehouse, and that's the first sort of threshold that you pass through into the central courtyard, which can be used for prayer during special occasions. There is a central water feature on axis with the entry route there that reflects many of the surroundings. That's a common feature of both Islamic and specifically Qatari architecture. We then move through that external space, through the portal of the main prayer hall building itself, through that second threshold, and then finally facing into the prayer hall proper at the Qibla. And we've created a patterned soffit that allows natural light in, and so it creates a very ephemeral and dappled light through the day that changes at the five different prayer times. So you get this very ephemeral but changing atmosphere within the prayer hall as an appropriate place for worship.
المسجد الأول هو المسجد الذي يقع في المنطقة التاريخية مقابل لمتحف بن جلمود. هذا المسجد به الملامح الرئيسية لعمارة المساجد في قطر. المساجد التراثية التقليدية في قطر كانت مساجد شديدة البساطة، تؤكد على فكرة أن المسجد هو حيز للقاء الإنسان بربه، للقاء الإنسان بإخوانه من المسلمين. وبالتالي زخرفة المسجد، عملاقة المسجد، ضخامة المسجد لم تكن أبداً واحدة من المعايير الرئيسية لتصميم المساجد التقليدية التراثية في دولة قطر.
لما ذهبوا بعض سكان الخليج إلى زيارة الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم من منطقة هجر ومن منطقة نجد، شاهدوا المسجد النبوي. المسجد النبوي عبارة عن رواق متجه إلى القبلة، ورواقين في طرفي مثل ذراعين في طرفي المسجد. وهذا المخطط ظل سكان منطقة شرق الجزيرة العربية يحافظون على هذا المخطط.
التشريح النمطي للمساجد كان عبارة عن ثلاثية مهمة جدا جدا. الثلاثية هي فناء مفتوح أو حوش، يليه ليوان مظلل، ثم قاعة الصلاة. عندما نتأمل المسجد الموجود في المنطقة التاريخية في مشيرب نجد أنه اتبع نفس الأسلوب. المكون الأول هو فناء مفتوح لكنه محاط بمجموعة من الأسوار، وعلى بدايته مجموعة من العقود المؤهلة والمرحبة للإنسان ليدخل إلى هذا الفضاء الأول. تنتقل من هذا الفضاء إلى فضاء نصف عام نصف خاص، ونصف مظلل ونصف مفتوح، وهو منطقة الليوان، ومنها إلى القاعة المغلقة وهي قاعة الصلاة، وأمامك مباشرة حائط القبلة.
The mosque we designed at Msheireb is part of the community. It's surrounded by townhouses and places where people live, and this is the mosque for them. The way we've placed it creates public spaces, a pocket park. It contributes to the network of alleyways and shaded spaces within Msheireb. So it's all about living in the city and returning to the city as part of that Qatari community. The mosque addresses the guidelines at a number of scales. First of all, its minaret had to be visible from the main square and down a beautifully straight street that heads off to the south. So that minaret is part of the overall planning of Msheireb. But it goes right down to the scale of the ablutions and how at Msheireb care was taken about every detail. So the way in which the ablutions were set out and functionally planned is the level of detail that every mosque architect at Msheireb had to go to make a wonderful mosque to use as well as to look at. That really reflects the ethos of the Msheireb design guidelines, which we had a part in creating. And in the architectural guidelines, it does span these amazing scales, which means that at every level of detail, Msheireb is an exceptional place to live in and visit. The central theme for the prayer hall is the hilal, the crescent moon that's formed geometrically by the intersection of two circles. And we used this motif to create a roof light. The natural light washes down the wall of the mihrab, which is formed by the intersection of the hilal as a volume with the rectangle of the prayer space. And this produces a beautiful soft light that infuses the prayer gallery and the hall below, and is complemented by windows that offer views onto the public square next door. So within the space, we go from the everyday life of the city to the spiritual light, dropping and washing the mihrab, the focus of prayer, pointing to Mecca along the Qibla wall. The south elevation, which addresses the rest of Msheireb and its other communities, is the most domestic because, as with all the modern mosques, apartments for the imam and for the muezzin and for the janitor need to be provided. There is a semi-domestic character to the facade, and it speaks of this hybrid between a place to live as well as a place to worship. We think that the integration of the apartments in the mosque, although it struck us as unusual first of all, is actually wonderful because these are the people who maintain and represent and offer so much to the community through their works as guardians of the mosque. And we've provided a roof garden for the imam who can be up on the rooftops within the halal space and enjoy a moment in the city of calm, a place of reflection, as well as serving the community down in the prayer halls and through the good works of the mosque. During the design and construction of the Msheireb project, I lived for a number of years in Doha, and in this time visited as many of the traditional mosques as I could, and they all have a humble quality to them. They're made of the gypsum, coral stone. They're not grand. They have this humility that I think reflects something to do with the attitude to Islam. And that simple materiality we translated into our mosque at Msheireb, which was also shared by the houses set around that mosque. So all part of a single community that feels like it comes from the same place, speaks the same language. Of the three mosques at Msheireb, ours is perhaps the most humble in its expression outwardly, and arguably the simplest internally.
إذا انتقلنا إلى مسجد آخر الموجود في منطقة B1 نجد أن هذا المسجد أيضاً ارتكز على المفاهيم التراثية التقليدية لتصميم المساجد في قطر، لكن أصبح هناك نوع من أنواع التعقيد التشكيلي، وهذا التعقيد التشكيلي نتج من البنية الهندسية المركبة الناتجة عن تزاوج ما بين المربع والمكعب وما بين الهلال. والهلال هو واحد من الأشكال التي تعبر وترمز للإسلام، ومستخدم في فضاءات وفي أماكن كثيرة من مكونات المباني في المجتمعات الإسلامية، وخاصة على قمة المآذن. هذا التداخل ما بين المربع والهلال أنتج تشكيل متميز، وعبر هذا الهلال ليس فقط عن علاقته بالمسجد ولكن أيضا علاقته بالمدينة، لأن مدينة الدوحة هي مدينة تقع على هلال. هذا الهلال هو الخليج الممتد من منطقة المتحف الإسلامي، ويتحرك هذا الهلال وصولا إلى فندق الشيراتون وحديقة الشيراتون. هذه المورفولوجية التشكيلية أبهرت الفريق المعماري وقرر أن يركب هذه البنية الهندسية لينتج أيضاً مسجد بسيط لكنه به تعقيد هندسي، تعقيد في البنية الهندسية له. نجد أيضاً في هذا المسجد فكرة من الأفكار التي ورثت من التاريخ القطري المعماري والعمراني وأعيد صياغتها بصورة جيدة جدا في هذا المكان، وهي فكرة البراحة الخارجية أو الفضاء الخارجي. كيف يتحول المسجد إلى مكان به امتداد لفضاء خارجي؟ هناك علاقة ما بين المسجد والحديقة، علاقة ما بين الفضاءات المغلقة والفضاءات المفتوحة، وبالتالي أصبح المسجد سواء الوصول إليه أو الخروج منه يتم من خلال فضاء مفتوح. هذا الفضاء المفتوح أيضاً به مجموعة من المقاعد المدروس توزيعها مع مجموعات من الأشجار المظللة للمكان وعناصر مائية تعطي تلطيف لدرجة حرارة الجو في الأيام الحارة. وبالتالي نتج عن هذه المعالجة أن الفضاء الخارجي أصبح فضاء للقاء، أصبح فضاء عندما ننتهي من الصلاة نتحاور ونتناقش ونتكلم، فيحدث نوع من أنواع التفاعل الاجتماعي. إشكالية كبيرة جدا في مساجدنا المعاصرة في المدن العربية المعاصرة أنك تنتهي من الصلاة لتخرج، تنتهي من الصلاة لترى أين صففت سيارتك وتنطلق. مساجد مشيرب تقدم لك لغة بديلة، لكن الواقع أن هذه اللغة البديلة هي مستمدة أيضا من التراث القطري، سواء على التراث المعماري أو العمراني أو حتى التراث الاجتماعي ونمط الحياة. أن الخروج من المسجد أو القدوم إلى المسجد هو فرصة للتفاعل الاجتماعي. مئذنة المسجد البسيطة جدا جدا في تكوينها، لكن تم دراسة مكانها ودراسة انعكاسها على الأرض بحيث أنك يمكن أن تتعرف على مواقيت الصلاة وتقريبا تحدد الساعة، وأيضا تتعرف على الفصول السنة من خلال علامات معينة منقوشة على أرضية الفضاء العام. وعندما تلتقي هذه العلامات مع ظل المأذنة فأنت تعلم أننا الآن نقترب من صلاة العصر، أو أننا الآن دخلنا فصل الصيف أو فصل الخريف. إذن عندما نتأمل العلاقة ما بين المسجد وما بين الفضاءات العامة نجد أن هذه العلاقة مرسخة ومتجذرة في نسيج المدينة القطرية التقليدية.
We are here inside the main prayer hall for the Mosque 1A, and one of the design features that we would like to basically illustrate here is how the architect have translated his understanding of the lights and natural light to enter to the space. And beautifully here you can see a full height of the window with the opening and the column module being reflected to the ceiling, and it goes again down from the other wall. The second nice feature that we wanted to highlight here in the design is the mihrab and the minbar. Both these spaces are being framed by a beautiful portals decorated with the verses of the Quran.
From the beginning, we were captivated by the spirit of the project, the vision of Msheireb Properties and the John Rose, and the opportunity to work with such a great team. Our urban approach was based on the idea of creating an interaction space between public, realm, and prayer hall. The idea of the courtyard itself, for the design of the mosque, it's providing a zone of contemplation and reflection before entry, and we realized we didn't have enough space. So the first thing we did is we readjust the mosque position, and we tried to create a public realm, a urban courtyard, in a courtyard, outer prayer room, and a prayer hall. Traditional coloration and patterning were our inspiration during the design process and were incorporated into the design ethos of the scheme. Important also was the ethereal qualities defining a mosque, which includes the reverberation of the sound, the careful calibration of natural light, and the idea of having these courtyard spaces. So we base our concept in the idea of two interlocking iwans, the iwan of shade and the iwan of light. The iwans were perpendicular. So we created these two perpendicular directional fields, the shade iwan pointing towards Mecca, and the light iwan defining and illuminating the lines of Saf for the congregation. Both iwans were integrated into the fabric of the mosque through the walls and roof structure of the building. The iwan of shade runs from the back entrance to the mosque to the front Qibla wall and is made of timber and stone, while the iwan of light describes the ethereal qualities of the mosque, the passing of the time of the arrival of prayers through the change of light. Through openings on the walls and the roof of the mosque, the iwan of light creates direction for the congregation, and the intensity of the light is increased towards the front Qibla wall to highlight its importance. One of the most important aspects for us was encourage the women participation within the mosque. We provided them with a dignified entrance leading into an internal courtyard, from which one they could access the prayer and as well have a space for themselves. We as well added children's area to the program so they were more comfortable bringing the kids with them. For us, the mosque emerged from a careful, curated effort to blend into vernacular Qatari and the master plan. We wanted to achieve continuity between the past, the present, and the future by finding timeless motifs and techniques, which also enable us to create the identity of the building that will be recognizable by its function and form and design. The location of the minaret was studied in terms of visibility and proximity to the mosque entrance. Due to the high density of the development, it was a challenge. So again, we wanted to create a building that invites you and you can approach it from different directions. So the minaret was placed strategically. So the one of light irradiates at night from the mosque in the evenings to symbolically illuminate Phase 3 neighborhood. So this is a small yet so unique building on several levels. Connects the past with the future, tradition with modern life, and in the best way represents the Msheireb Downtown Doha vision, or at least that's what we hope. It was a truly pleasure to work with you and to work in this project.
الثلاث مساجد في تكوينها المعماري وعلاقتها وتشابكها العمراني ولغتها الجمالية ونوعية المواد التي استخدمت فيها والأنساق الجيومترية والهندسية التي استخدمت فيها تقدم في حد ذاتها نموذج لما يمكن أن أسميه الأصالة المعاصرة. بدلاً من أن نقع دائماً في فخ الأصيل مقابل المعاصر، أعتقد أن هذه المساجد الثلاث تقدم دليل على أن الأصالة والمعاصرة لا تتناقض، وأنها يمكن أن تلتقي فيما يمكن أن نسميه الأصالة المعاصرة، بمعنى أننا نتحدث عن مباني وأعمال معمارية وفضاءات عامة وفضاءات حدائقية لها مرجعيتها التاريخية، لها تفسيرها في نمط حياة المجتمع القطري القديم، لكنها تقدم هذا بصورة لا تنسى أبداً أننا في القرن 21، لا تنسى أبداً أننا نتحدث بلغة معاصرة وبلغة حداثية وبلغة تتواكب مع إيقاع العصر الحديث.
عندما كتبت كتابي عن الزخرفة الجبسية في الخليج، كان ينظر إلى الخليج في الثمانينات أنه خالي من أي ثقافة، من أي حضارة، وأن كل ما ينتجه الخليج هو عبارة عن شيء مستورد إما من الهند أو من إيران أو من أفريقيا، ولكن هو لا يمتلك شيء. وكان هذا حكم ظالم في حق منطقة عريقة تمتد أكثر من 7000 سنة. فأتمنى أن الأجيال القادمة تتعلم من هذا التراث. هناك الكثير مما يمكن أن يتعلمه، وكثير من الأفكار الجميلة العبقرية اللي انتجه لنا فكر أسلافنا القدماء. مسألة القبة ومسألة القوس ومسألة البناء وتفاصيل البناء أخذ مئات السنين حتى استطاع أسلافنا وأجدادنا أنهم يصلوا بها إلى هذا المستوى. فلذلك هناك الكثير مما يمكن أن يتعلمه الأجيال القادمة من هذه العمارة الجميلة الرقيقة المليئة بالجمال. في أي زاوية في أي طرف تنظر إلى هذا البناء تجده جميل رائع، وتتلاقى مع أرواحنا وتحتضن أرواحنا وشخصياتنا، ونشعر براحة شديدة في وسط هذه الأماكن.